what we will do is we will build a Blink that helps you collect feedback from your users. We will create a Blink. We will set up a little Neon database. We will use Prisma to write into this database, and then we will use message signing to finalize everything and store and return a message. The first thing that we want to do today is we want to clone our scaffold, because with our scaffold, we already have a pre-configured setup to build out a Blink. To do that, I will share my screen and open my terminal. Let's say we do npx create blinks app. This is, by the way, the command. All the time you say npx create blinks app, it will run our scaffold. Our scaffold first will ask you for which chain you want to build. In our case, we say Solana. And then it asks you for the project name. I call this one feedback blink. And then the rest will be done by our scaffolds. In the background right now, it pulls the latest template from our GitHub repository and installs all the dependencies, sets up a Git repository, at least the local one for me. And then all I have to do is I say cd feedback blink. Normally what I also do is I do an npm. No, first of all, I say cursor, because this is my editor. Make sure we have this thing here. And then also say npm run dev to make sure that everything runs as expected. It says localhost here. That's great. Let's click on this here and see if it opens my scaffold. This looks already good. I also see it loaded our donation blink. This is basically the blink with which our scaffold always comes. And if you at some point don't really know how to set up everything, you can always go and revisit the file structure and everything, how it is set up, if you just want to find out how to build the first blink. Now, our Doku, of course, also has all this information for you ready. Good. Now, our blink is here. Our basic setup is done. Now, let's start with the GET request first. And then once the GET request is done, we start setting up the database and all that stuff. But first, let's make sure that we have something nicely displayed in our scaffold. To do that, we have, if you see here on the left side, a folder called source. This folder source has an app folder, and it has an API folder. And in this API folder, for those of you who don't know Next.js, basically are those endpoints towards we send the blink to. So we have API/actions, and then in actions, we create a new folder which we call feedback, and a new file that we call route.ts. And in this file is basically where we will write our blink. A blink always comes with a little bit of boilerplate. I usually do this first because I think if I don't do it, sometimes I just miss it, and then it doesn't work, and I look for hours for the error message. So I always start with importing the action course headers. So you say action course headers from the Solana actions package. And also what I always import are the blockchain IDs. The blockchain IDs, it is a place that has all the IDs for blockchain. So imagine every blockchain has an own ID, and not just every blockchain, but each environment of the blockchain as well. So now, for example, Solana DevNet has a different blockchain ID than the Solana mainnet. And this is very critical. And to make it our lives easier, don't start here in our Solana actions file. So I say I use the CAP2 of Solana mainnet. And then all I have to say is const is a blockchain. This is where we store it in. And then we say blockchain IDs.mainnet. Okay. The second part of our boilerplate are the headers. So we say headers, and here we just say const headers, and this is also an object. And in this object, we give it the action course headers first, and then we have the X blockchain IDs, which is this blockchain ID that the constant that we took in line 4. And then also we have a X action type. No, sorry, version. This is also important because this version tells our client for which version you wrote this blink. There's obviously different kind of clients out there. Always depends on how fast wallets are and the integration. And also for your website, if you, for example, have our scaffold here, our scaffold has always the latest client package. But let's say your software gets older, like a year from now, probably the action version will be a newer one. So if you now come to this blink, our client with this version knows, okay, this is version 2.4. So I know how to set up myself that everything runs smoothly. And the last thing of our boilerplate are the options handler. This is also a pretty easy one because we normally just return a null here. So it's async turn new response null, and we give it the headers, and that's basically it. Okay, this is our boilerplate. This is what we always have to do. And then with the next step, what we would do is we would start with our get request. So say get handler, export const get equals like so. And then this request gets a payload. So create the payload. Our payload is from type action get response. And then we say const payload is action get response from the type. And then the type comes with type, which is action. And then it has a title. We call it, let's say, tell us what blinks need. And then maybe say a description. Description, let us know what's missing in blinks. Data typo, description. Okay. And then we need the icon. The icon is the image of the blink. What we will do here is we will do a new URL, and then we say it's, what was it in our public folder was feedback. So it's /feed.jpg. And then we take the URL from the request. Therefore, we say request. And this time we have to take it here, and then we say request.url. And then we give it a toString. All right, this looks good. And then in the last part, we say links. Links is an object. And this object has an actions array. It's linked actions. And then for the linked actions, we basically just need a text input. We say the type, which is, I think it's transaction, or is it message? We will see soon. We give it a href, which is /API/action/feedback. And then we will give it also a param called feedback. And we give it a label, which is send feedback. And it also gets parameters, which is an array. And then this array has a name, which is feedback. It has a type, which is a text area. It is required. And then it also needs a label. Let's say which feature I'm missing for blinks. Okay. Also, let's give it a label here. Say send feedback, because then this thing is no longer red and likes us again. And with that, nothing is red. We only have to return it. Let's say return payload. And then we say return new response. JSON string if. And it gets the payload, and it also takes our headers. That's pretty much it. Now I want to see how it looks like. Therefore, we have to go to our source folder, and in our page.tsx, we have to update the link to the blink, which is here. And then we say feedback. And then if things go right, yeah, we see already here is our blink. It has a text area. It has a feedback button, which is already what we are looking for. Let's close this. I wanted to have it as a text. Then it's not too much of input, and I think it looks just nicer. Yeah, all right. And then because it's required true, you already see we do type checks in the front end. So this is grayed out. The moment I say 1, 2, 3, it says send feedback here. I can click on it and it would happen. Okay, we have our Blink GET request, the UI that the user gets to see. Now something will happen in the future because the user will say, this is my feedback, and you will click on send feedback. And now you will see there is an error. This is normal because we don't have a post endpoint. So every time a user clicks on it, it will send this message to post endpoint. And from there, it's going to be stored in a database in our case, or there's a transaction on chain happening or something like that. Okay. Now that we have this, we have to start with a little bit of config first, because as I said before, we will take a database and save everything in a database so that our users don't have to pay, let's say, Sol to store something on chain, or, they should not pay you for feedback and you should not pay for receiving feedback. Therefore, we just take a database and store it there. And to do that, we first of all have to install a few more packages here. I said before we are using Prisma. So let me make this a bit bigger here. And then let's install our packages. So we say npm install, and then it's Prisma. And we need a Prisma client. Prisma is called an OMR. So it's a framework that creates SQL commands for you, and you can use a normal data model to model your data the way you want, and then all the scripts and stuff are created for you. Okay. Then let's say npx prisma init. Prisma init. This seems to be working. You see here it tells us it created a prisma / schema.prisma file. So if you go here, you see there is a new folder called Prisma, and then schema.prisma already comes with a little bit of pre-setup. That's great. Then it says in the next step, we have to add a database URL to our .env file. We can do that. Let's see in our .env file how this looks right now. So you see it already has a database URL right here. And then it has a dummy URL filled in. This URL is important because this is the one that we will need to connect to our database. To do that, it's time to create our database. I said already before we use Neon for that. Let's go to Neon. You can say Neon database, for example, and then you see here a serverless Postgres database. If you click on it, I might already be logged in. Yes, but as you can see already, I'm in a free tier here. I have deleted all my databases so far. Let's say I create a new project. I call this project feedback. I say create, and now it says it's creating my stuff. The next thing that I have to do is I have to connect my database. So this is the string that we saw here in our database URL. Click on connect and then copy the snippet. And the next step, you have to paste the snippet here in your .env. I will, for a few seconds, stop my stream so that the secrets are not shown. So bear with me for 1 sec. Okay, let's do this. Save. And then close it again. And we are back. My .env file already has the string, and we can continue. So the next thing that we do is we start with our database model. The model is very straightforward for this. We take the ID, of course, a timestamp. They will send us a wallet, so you will store their wallet for sure, that you know who sent you the feedback. And also we want to have the message. Go back to our schema.prisma file here, and then we say we do a new model, which is feedback. And then in our feedback model, we will do our ID. The ID is int, and then it is at ID, and it is at default, which auto increments. This is correct. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to create a wallet. wallet is a string, and it is going to be a varchar. So we say db. It says 44 here, and I think it's correct, but I just say 255 because I haven't checked it and I don't want to run into errors. The next thing that we do is we do a timestamp. So we say created add, and then we say it's date time, and then it's at default and now, correct. So this tells it, okay, every time there's a new entry, do a timestamp. This helps us to later figure out when we receive this feedback. And then of course we want to have feedback. The feedback is string, and it's at db.text. If we do like so, then we tell it, okay, look, this is a text. There is no length constraint, because if I receive long feedback, I don't want my database to say, sorry, the feedback was maybe good, but too long, so I couldn't really store it. And then what we also do, because we might want to check out our feedback later based on the user, so we maybe want to index it through the wallet. So we say add index, and we add wallet. This tells it, okay, look, we want to have an extra index on this wallet running, and then later we can see what wallet gave us which feedback, and we can just also filter and everything. Okay, that's been it. This is our model. The next thing that we do is we create a table. We have to create it. So now we tell it, okay, we have a Postgres database. This is the URL. The URL is now a .env file. And then we tell it we want to have this model and this index. So with this information, Prisma is smart enough to build all the SQL statements that we need. So let's proceed with that. To do so, open our terminal here, and then let's say npx prisma init minus name, and then we say, let's call it init feedback. Is this correct? Sorry, it's not. I have a little cheat sheet here just to make sure that we don't have to have too much hassle today. So npx prisma migrate. And what it does is it basically creates now the SQL comments. It also connects to our database. It tells it about the schema. So already our database knows what kind of data will be uploaded. It also says it has created a client here, but I still say npx prisma generate just to make sure. This is the next command that we run. And again, it says it created a client. So that's perfect. One last thing that I wanted to point you to is we are using Next.js here, and Prisma has a special information about this. So I hope I still have it here, Prisma troubleshooting. So the link here is Prisma docs/orm/more help and troubleshooting, and then Next.js help. And this Next.js help basically tells you that it is not a good idea to use the client directly. You should rather create your own wrapper for it. All the code that you need is here in this little text snippet. So let's go and also do that. Just copy the code. And then in our source folder, create a new one, which we call lib. And then in the lib, we call this one prisma.ts. And then just import the Prisma client. One little thing here, it says add prisma/client, but it created all our stuff in the generated folder. So you see the client is here. Therefore, don't go with this import. It will cause pain. Do /generated/prisma, and you're good to go. And with that, I think we are good with our client part. The next thing we do is we will start with our post request. So for the post request, if you are a user and want to send feedback, you click submit, then our Blink sends a post request to the post endpoint. We here said our post endpoint is API actions feedback, which is exactly here. And therefore we can right now in the same file write our post handler, start with export const post, and then we give it the request. In this case, it's very important to take this request because the request has a parameter called account, and then this account is our public key. This is always sent back, so we don't have to bother for that. So we start with get public key from user. To do that, we say const request, and this is an action post request.json. Okay, and we have to import it here. Okay, it's already imported. And then from here we say const account equals request. Our account here is our public key, which is exactly what we want. The next thing what we want to do is we want to get the feedback. The feedback is const feedback equals, and then we have URL dot search params search get, and it's feedback. It's feedback, yeah. Copy paste it here to make sure we have it. And then what we can do is we can do a console log and then say account and feedback to see if it's working. So let's go to our npm right here and say send feedback. And then it should, let's first of all do this. And then I have no idea why it says so. It should actually work. No, of course it doesn't work. I don't have the variable yet. New URL. We took the request.url up there, but not here. Okay. So now it looks better. So again, say we do it here. And then we will see account is here and feedback. This is my feedback. Okay, so we have public key, we have feedback. Now we're talking. Okay, let's go back. So next thing that we want to do is we want to save the feedback in the database. Access message equals await. And then we need Prisma for this. So let's import our Prisma client real quick. Import Prisma from lib/Prisma. This is good. And then let's go back here and say await prisma.feedback.create. And then it asks us for data. And then the data is wallet. Wallet is our account. And then the feedback is our feedback. And then I just give it, if we don't have feedback, an empty string. Okay. So this is our success message. This is how I write into the database. And then the next step that we have to do is we have to return a message. We say return the success message is fine. No, success message is wrong. Return a message. It's called completion message. It sounds better. The completion message is, again, a new transaction. So we say const payload. And this is from type, it's an action post response. And then basically we don't return, we say create a payload. Like always, stick to the plan. And we have to import it here as well. So we say action post response, that's great. And then it, of course, asks us what we want to do. So we have a type. The type in this case is message. And we tell it data, which is thank you for your feedback. And then very important, this is a chaining. So we have to give it a next step. So we say links. And then it has a next. And then this next will ask us for an endpoint. We say the type is post. And we have an endpoint, which will be /API/actions/feedback/complete. And with this endpoint, we will also, okay. And then in the next step, we will first return it. And then I have to explain a few things. Return new response, JSON.stringify payload. And then the headers again. So you see the structure is more or less the same. What I said right now is we do chaining. Chaining means that you have multiple steps. I have this action post response. I send it back. But there is a next step. And the next step is in this post route. And from here, you just navigate through post routes, if you will. For us, our step is also the last step. So therefore, I just call this route complete. And now it does not exist, so I have to create it too. So here you say feedback. You see here that we have the feedback folder. Let's create in the feedback folder a subfolder called complete. And then in complete, again, we do route.ts file. And now always important, sometimes you move a file into another folder and you don't really see it. Therefore, always check that your path is right. So if I look here, you see that it's API actions feedback complete route.ts. This looks good. So I think this should be the path. So the route.ts file is in the complete path and not somewhere else. Okay, to finish this route, we start with our boilerplate again. I will just copy paste it here because it's always the same. So let's copy this one. Let's paste it here. Let's remove the Prisma client. And then we don't need a get here. We just have a post. And then this one is export const post. And it's gonna be a async. And we will do again a payload. So create a payload and const payload load. And then we say here it has a type, which is action. And we have an icon. Let's just take the same icon that we had, which is this one. Like so. Now we have to add it, you have to give it a request as well. So we say request. Okay. And then also we need a description. Just say description is thank you for your feedback is cool. So let's say description, thank you for your feedback. All right, that's enough. Then we give it a label. Just say done. Nothing so important. And we give it a links again, because optionally this thing not really knows if there's another step or not, because again, chaining is one step after another. And just once you complete the next step, it looks for the next step. And here we just have to tell it that basically it's done. So we say actions, and we give it an empty array. And this tells it, okay, empty array is basically full stop, we're done. And of course, we also have to return it. So let's say return payload. And then again, return new response. JSON.stringify payload. And we give it the headers as well. Here's nothing red. That's cool. Let's also remove our other imports here. Okay, so nothing is red. Looks good here. Feedback also looks so far so good. Let's try it. So let's go back here. Let's reload the page. And let's say we can do hello world. Okay, let's say send feedback. It opens my wallet. It asks me to send a message. I say sign message, I confirm it. And it said, thank you for your feedback. Now we have to check if this actually was in our database. To do that, we open Prisma Studio. So we say npx Prisma Studio. And then Prisma Studio has here my data model already, which is feedback. Let's click on it. It's loaded. And we see it's the first entry. It has our wallet. It has our feedback, and it has the timestamp. Let's do one more. Let's say blinks are awesome. Let's say again, send message. It says thank you for your feedback. Let's go back to our Prisma Studio. Let's reload. And blinks are awesome, and it's there. Okay, so to summarize, what we just saw is how you can collect feedback using a blink. This blink can write via the post route into a regular Web2 database. In our case, we use Neon database for that. We use Prisma as a ORM to make our life a bit easier with all those commands. Of course, this blink is not 100% done. This is to show you how you can do it. Normally, you should, of course, check if the success message is there. If the success message maybe fails, you should have error handling for that. The same goes for our feedback. Let's say feedback would be empty. Of course, our front end here checks if something is basically in there. And if it's empty, it will prevent that. But if someone plays around with your endpoints, you still want to make sure that the feedback has entries in there. Also, what you can do is you can verify your message on the server side to make sure that this is a proper one. Yeah, but for the simplicity of this example and to show you basically how the idea behind this is, and also not to run out of time, we decided to keep this a very lightweight example today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, just post them into the YouTube comments and we will always answer them. If you want to reach out to me, you already see my name here. It's bjorn.sol. It's the same on Telegram and in X. So just shoot me a message and yeah, we can discuss everything that you want to know. Also, we have a Discord, is discord.gg/say dialect. Let me just say Discord. And in our Discord, we have a dev channel, so we can also discuss everything there in a broader group. And with that, I say thank you so much. Have a great day. And yeah, if you run into any issues, let me know. I'm super down to help. And with that, see you in the next one. Bye.